Welcome, Jets Talk. My name's Ryan. I'll be your pilot. If you're new here, hit that subscribe button. If you've been here before, welcome back. I love having you here. Boys and girls, I'm here to talk a little bit about Quinnen Williams, the New York Jets' possibly best player on our roster, and his contract negotiations with the New York Jets. According to Rich Cimini, they are not close on a long-term extension. So let's take a look at the little note from Cimini, see what was actually said, and then we'll get into all the reasoning for this. Let's make a deal. 2 defensive tackles from Quinnen Williams' draft class. Tennessee Titans Jeffrey Simmons and New York Giants Dexter Lawrence have received big extensions this offseason. Williams appears to be the next man up, but the two sides aren't close to an agreement, even though the second contract market for top defensive tackles is clearly formed. The Jets have leverage because they have Williams' rights for 2023, plus a potential franchise tag in 2024, but that doesn't do them any good to upset one of their top players. In the meantime, he's skipping voluntary workouts. So we knew Quinnen was going to skip voluntary workouts. This was actually from a press conference at the end of the season. I'll roll this little clip and then we'll talk about it on the other side.
Everybody know I'm a team guy, man. Everybody know that I believe in team and want to push team first and different things like that. But I do want to get a contract done before the off-season program. I do want to feel like I deserve to get a contract done for the off-season program, just because I did everything right on the field and everything right off the field, and just having the organization behind me, just like I'm behind them, to show that they really support me and different things like that is an amazing thing for me. So.
You want to be the highest paid defensive tackle in the league?
I just want to be I just want to be compensated for what I am in itself, man. It's not really how much money I make or how least money I make, man. I just want to. My agent gonna handle all that. So.
What you said before the off-season program, if it's not done, would you skip the voluntary portion of the program?
Yeah, I'll skip it.
All right, so you heard a few things there from Quinnen Williams. Obviously, he's a pretty humble dude. He's been doing things right on the field, things right off the field, and he feels like he should be compensated for that effort and the performances that he's put forward. I mean, his domination of the Green Bay Packers with, 2 sacks? I think he had a blocked field goal in there too. Absolutely dominant performance. We saw what our defense looked like without Quinnen Williams, and it was not very nice. Not very good at all. But you heard him say, are you looking to be the highest paid defensive tackle? And, he kind of he has a good political answer as far as saying like, I want to be, paid fairly for what my services are and whatnot. So I think we're trying to figure out what that fair market value is and where does it fall between the New York Jets and Quinnen Williams. And we've seen a few guys get big contracts, so I'll pull that up real quick. Here are the top paid defensive tackles. Obviously, you've got Aaron Donald, king of the castle. The dude's been absolutely stellar as defensive tackle. He is the top rung on this whole list, $31 million a year on average. Now, I don't think anyone's expecting anyone to get Aaron Donald money because Aaron Donald is one of one. No matter how much you slice it, no other defensive tackle has done what this guy has done. So then you're looking at these next few guys, and they don't have Dexter Lawrence's new contract on here. He's at $22.5 million a year. So I guess over the cap didn't have that figured all out yet. But Jeffrey Simmons, one of the guys that we were just talking about in Rich Cimini's tweet, $94 million value, $23.5 a year with just under $60 million guaranteed. Deron Payne of the Commanders getting that $90 million mark with $60 million guaranteed. And then you kind of go through this whole list and you're saying, okay, well, you're looking, if Dexter Lawrence is getting $22.5 million, Quinnen Williams, based on this Jeffrey Simmons contract, you'd be looking at somewhere maybe $95 million total or something along those lines with an average of $24 million a year and just over $60 million fully guaranteed. And I think when you look at the statistics of these particular players, you're looking at, clearly based on a per snap basis, Quinnen Williams has really had the most productive career of these particular players. Christian Wilkins has not received his contract extension. He did get his 5th year exercised by the Miami Dolphins. But if you look at it across the board, Quinnen has the least amount of snaps, but clearly the most production across the board. So in theory, he has more snaps. He has more value to the team. Now, where that winds up coming into maybe issues is the amount of snaps that Quinnen Williams actually plays. In this particular type of defense, we don't prioritize a lot of snaps. We prioritize rest and the ability to maybe have more reps at 100% more than overall reps across the board, because maybe later in the game, because of this, Russ Quinnen is hitting at a higher octane as opposed to maybe some of these other guys that might be hitting, they're playing more snaps, but maybe they're a little more gassed towards the end of games. And we saw it clearly worked because Quinnen Williams had the best season of his career last year. But you're talking about defensive snaps. And I think when you're factoring all this in, you're looking at, the lowest being, 68%, 66%, somewhere in there. And it goes up from there. But then you look at Quinnen, it's like drastically lower than everyone else. So you're talking about paying a ton of money to Quinnen Williams to play 2/3 of the snaps that you're looking for. And I can understand where that might be a little bit of a conflict of resources when you're talking about the amount of salary cap space that you have and the amount of playable snaps you're actually getting from Quinnen Williams, because there's an argument to be made that maybe the money is better spent on two players that could have maybe less of a impact as a singular unit, but God forbid someone gets hurt, you still have that other player where if Quinnen goes down, you are up shit's creek. That's kind of the little delicate balance that you have here. And I brought up the team values and everything like that, right? Like Dexter Lawrence getting $22.5 million a year. Jeffrey Simmons getting $23.5 million. Payne getting, I think it was $22 million. When they're talking about the Jets and the team control, and why I thought it was a little surprising that the contracts were going up quite as high as they were for the defensive tackles, is they all have this same kind of option. And the Jets have team control over Quinnen. You have his 5th-year option at $9.5 million a year. If you use the franchise tag on him in 2024, it's going to cost you $20.8 million a year. And then 2025, if you were to use the second franchise tag on him, it would be 120% of what his previous year was, which would be $25 million. So in total, you're basically talking about a baseline contract for Quinnen of 3 years, $55.3 million with $18.4 million guaranteed. So if you're talking about a guy that is maybe shooting for at least that $24 million a year number that we're kind of talking about here, he's going to play less snaps than the rest of the guys, and the Jets are going to be giving back basically $5 million a year just because, they feel like it, because they think Quinnen is worth it. Now, I have no problem with Quinnen getting paid that much money because I do think he's worth it. I think over time you'll see that impact felt and realized. He is one of the younger defensive tackles in the league at 26 years old. But I can totally get where maybe Joe Douglas looking at the numbers saying, hey, look, why would I give up $5 million a year in salary cap space when I know I have you for this figure? And if you're talking about having Aaron Rodgers here and trying to go on a Super Bowl run the next 2 years, there is an argument to be made for saying, hey, well, we need to make as much salary cap space as possible for these next 2 years so we can fit as many players under the cap as possible, which obviously with the franchise tag in 2024 of $20 million, that creates a lot of hurdles. So if you stretch Quinnen's contract out on a long-term deal, you're going to drop the salary cap hits of these next few years. So that's the benefit. Now, the bad side of that is you're also pushing off those guaranteed cap hits and the guaranteed money and everything like that into future years. Aaron Rodgers, we're already doing that. We're going to have a massive dead cap hit in 2025. So you're talking about doing that possibly with two players in particular. And then that also calls into question, okay, well, I don't think this should be a factor, but how much is there valued, or how much value does Douglas put on his draft picks and his selections and things like that? Like, would maybe deferring payments to Quinnen on the far end of this contract, 2025, 2026, whatever the big cap hits are, does that impact your ability to sign guys like maybe Garrett Wilson, Sauce Gardner, AVT? I think that's where you're trying to figure out where Rodgers' contract sort of works out and how this all works out. So there's a lot of confusion. I shouldn't say confusion, but there's a lot of logistics that go into this whole decision, and it makes sense why this deal could be getting pushed off, or maybe why both sides could be further apart on a contract than maybe we all thought. Because in my mind, I'm thinking, hey, 4 years, $100 million, make Quinnen $25 million a year, nice and easy. He's clearly the best of all the different players. But it doesn't quite work like that. So I think, in my opinion, if I'm looking at this and I'm going to Quinnen and I'm saying, okay, look, if we're going to pay you well, you're going to get paid, phenomenally well. Let's give it $25 million a year, whatever that number is. If he's trying to get closer to Aaron Donald money, like if he's looking $29 million a year, I respect him trying to get as much as he possibly wants. I think every player should try to get as much as they want. And I think when you look at the negotiation side of things, Joe Douglas should want to get this deal done. They just haven't signed a second contract for another player. that they've drafted since Muhammad Wilkerson. And maybe there's a little bit of remorse from Jets ownership or something along those lines where they paid out this huge contract to Mo, and then it kind of bit him in the butt. Now, Quinnen is an entirely different type of player, an entirely different type of character. He's team first. I feel like he proves it on the field. I really do like Quinnen. But if he's looking for maybe that $28, $29 million a year number, which, look, I'll be honest, I don't know if that's what he's looking for. But I'm just saying, if he is looking for that, I don't blame the Jets for maybe going fifth-year option with him, franchise tag next year, and then maybe looking to swing him for a bunch of picks in 2025 when you have all your dead cap hitting anyway. Maybe it makes more sense to have a bunch of high draft picks. Maybe someone offers the 2 first-round picks for Quinnen Williams after your 2 years of Super Bowl run with Aaron Rodgers, and because you have that dead cap hit, those draft picks in 2025 and potentially 2026 might mean more for the Jets long-term than maybe stretching out Quinnen on a long-term deal now where we're paying over the price of what we actually have him for on team control. So it's a really weird, delicate balance. Nobody wants to franchise tag a player. One, it hurts your cap immensely from a structuring standpoint. And two, it just pisses off your star players. And it makes a bad... it puts a bad taste in the rest of the players' mouths. When you look at how Douglas has kind of built up this team, he's not paying a crazy ton of money to outside free agents. He's really trying to build this through the draft. And ideally, what you want to see as a young player, you want to see your team dedication, your skills off the field, your skills on the field, all this stuff kind of harmonize, and then you get your second contract. And Quinnen Williams is the embodiment of just that. So I think Quinnen getting a second contract sends a picture or sends a message to the rest of the team saying, hey, you do things the right way. You're going to get handed a brand new shiny contract. We want to keep you here long term. It tells the player you have a ton of confidence in them after they've shown a ton of confidence in you, or maybe the ability to do the right things and say the right things and play well on the field. So there's a lot that goes into this whole discussion. I think this is more than just player, money, moving numbers on a spreadsheet. Good teams pay their good players, and Quinnen Williams is a good player on a good team. I've seen the Buffalo Bills go out and spend $20 million a year on Von Miller when it seems like they have no money left whatsoever. So I think you have to find a way to get this done. I understand the logistics of the whole argument of where, snap percentage and maybe the valuation versus what you have him for versus what you may want to pay him or what he wants to get paid. But I think you got to get this done for the benefit of the team, for the benefit of the season, and, for the benefit all the way around. The Jets have to start paying their own players. Part of that is the Jets haven't drafted well prior to Quinnen Williams. So this is really the first contract that's come up from a player that makes sense for us to retain anyway. But I don't like seeing good players leave because of money that has to be spent anyway on salary cap. I would much rather give Quinnen the money than maybe a Trumaine Johnson or a Le'Veon Bell or one of those guys. There's way worse ways to spend money than on a premier defensive tackle that makes the whole defense click. Robert Saleh loves this guy because he eats up space, he blows through interior offensive linemen, and he creates pressure on the quarterback, and that is absolutely king in the NFL. So boys and girls, how do you feel about Quinnen Williams' contract? Do you think that there's a really big issue? Or do you think, maybe there's not as big of an issue as everyone's making it out to be, and this is going to get done anyway? I tend to think this is probably more clickbait type stuff for Rich Cimini trying to get either the Jets or Quinnen Williams to respond and create some type of story, and that this deal will definitely get done on the eve of training camp or maybe, within that first week of training camp. So guys, let me know what you think down below in the comments section. And as always, go Jets.